When people start businesses, they truly believe that the ultimate dream is to have a business, build the business, sell the business. However, if you're attached to it and you're a team player and the business is like your baby, and when you go to sell it, you feel like you've sort of lost yourself. I didn't get that, oh my God, that big high, that big win, the jumping around, the champagne bottles popping. I just got this feeling of just loneliness and what do I do now?
It's quite a difficult thing to overcome, isn't it?
Close your eyes, strip away all the money. What do you have? Who are your closest people? Who are the people that you can tell anything to? Who are the people that you can run to? Who are the people that if you got in a car accident, you needed immediate help, like who would you ring? Like, do you have those people in your life? Like if you don't have that, then you're in the wrong spot, because money is not forever.
You've been in the online game a long time. What are some of the key things that trigger you?
People telling me that you're so boss and you're so masculine and you look unapproachable. And I'm like, I would literally cut off my arm and give it to someone if they needed it.
You made a decision from day one that you're not going to sexualize yourself on the internet.
I would say to someone, say they're highly sexualized, don't even change your outfit, change your angles. Really show me what you can do as an athlete. That's what I would say to them. So bring out your inner athlete and show me what you can do. You don't have to change your clothes.
And we are back. The first Frankie Lee podcast from Australia in 18 months with a guest, Kayla Itsines. Welcome back to the show and welcome to your house.
So good to be here. Yeah, I know. We're in a cozy setting. I like it.
But last time we spoke in Dubai, 48 hours before the podcast, you told me that obviously you were taking back Sweat. Now, we couldn't talk about it as much in depth then as we can now, because obviously I hadn't all gone through those things to do. But I really want to go in depth into obviously what's been going on since you've taken it back over.
I mean, what I can say is it was definitely hard to sell, I guess, yourself. And I don't think I realized that, because what I believe is that when people start businesses, they truly believe that the ultimate dream is to have a business, build the business, sell the business. However, if you're attached to it and you're a team player and the business is like your baby, it's like you have the business, you build the business, and when you go to sell it, you feel like you've sort of lost yourself a little bit. And that's how I felt. I didn't get that, oh my God, that big high, that big win, the jumping around, the champagne bottles popping. I just got this feeling of just loneliness and what do I do now?
Because I suppose with you and your business, because the business was so attached to your name, even though it was Sweat that you were selling, obviously your name built the brand in the initial period, because it must have been like cutting your arm off, so to speak.
Yeah, it kind of was, definitely. And I just feel that now that I have it back, it's almost like your opportunities and the pace that you run at is on you. So it's endless now, which is awesome.
When there's a guy in England who's called David Lloyd, former tennis player. He sold his chain of gyms and his name was attached to the gyms. Obviously, it's called David Lloyd Gyms. And I watched an interview with him. And one of the things that he said is that one of the worst decisions he ever made in his life was selling his name attached to a business.
Yeah.
So is that kind of how you felt?
Yeah, I think it's like my biggest recommendation to anyone whose name is attached to a business. And I had this conversation with one of my friends, Adam, recently. He was telling me about, this and that. And I said, is your name attached to this business? He said, yeah. And I said, does it run without you? And he said, no. And I said, then don't do it. I think the goal is to have a business, build the business, remove your name from the business, sell the business. Then you're happy. Attachment. Right.
So in hindsight then, for you, it would have been better to sell that business as sweat.com when you were no longer involved in it, so the attachment wasn't there.
I would never not be involved. That's my thing. That's my problem with this. Like the business, I just love it so much. Like if you stripped everything away from me and you said, Kayla, you have nothing left in the world, find a job, I would go be a personal trainer. Like I genuinely love it. I genuinely enjoyed it. And then getting rid of it or selling it made me just sad. It made me feel like I was just nothing. Like I'm nothing without it, because I just love it so much. I don't know how to explain it.
Was it hard then seeing, like, obviously when you get taken over, there's a lot of cutbacks, Yeah. I mean, even we lost our contract with your business because of obviously you selling it. And then obviously, so there was all the third parties that were obviously cut out of the business. And then obviously staff were getting cut out of the business. It must be hard when you're still involved in the day-to-day to see all that happening in front of your eyes.
Yes, that was extremely difficult. And I think what else is extremely difficult is that people believe that it's you doing it. So that was like the hardest part of it as well. People were like, Kayla's making cuts and Kayla's doing this and Kayla's doing that. So that's when your name is attached. When it's good, but when it's bad, it's bad. And so, that was a really hard pill to swallow, because it wasn't actually me.
Yeah, because that's what I was seeing with the PR side of it. Because you were so attached to that business at the time, and obviously you are now as well. But because of all that, when the cuts were happening, like it was just in the news headlines and everything like that. It was all just like Kayla this, Kayla that, Toby this, Toby that, like cuts, and you're all getting smashed in the media. So it's quite a difficult thing to overcome, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that was one of the hardest things ever. Like I said, when it's bad, it's bad. So when definitely it's not you doing it, and it doesn't even have to be a company that bought your company. It can be anything in your life that is happening. If it's associated with a business, it's always your fault. And that's hard because most of the time it's not me.
But when you sell a business like that, there's obviously an earn-out period, a period where you have to work in the business anyway. So how was it like having someone else control your creative and artistic license within a brand that you had built yourself and knew where every direction was? Do you know what I mean? Like the creative part of it for you.
I think one of the good things about it was, and a positive was, it's still in the same space that I operated in. So it wasn't like it was we sold and then we had to go into like makeup or hair or whatever it was. We were still in the training space. So it actually did the opposite. It actually gave me an opportunity to speak to a different audience. It gave me, and I was pregnant at the time, so it gave me an opportunity to do pregnancy programs and long form. It allowed me to know more about equipment and hardware and how technology works in terms of fitness equipment. So it was a really good time in terms of learning. But just for me personally, I just felt like I was a little bit at a standstill. It wasn't a terrible time. I wasn't freaking out. It was a time of learning, but just having it back just makes me feel a lot better. There was nothing bad. It just makes me feel better.
When we talked before and previously off the podcast as well, you've always spoke to me from the lens of like, you just were passionate about personal training. And then it kind of evolved from there, and then you were selling PDFs, and then all of a sudden you're doing this, and you're doing groups, and it just all kind of like it was evolved. Do you think that people can make money then from their passion, like the same way that you have?
100%. But the thing that I will say is that one of the things that I used to say was, if you have a passion, then turn it into a career, because you're more likely to stick to it because you love it, because it's your passion. However, I now say, if you have a passion, let it be your passion and don't turn it into career. So that's something that I've learned just in the last, 10 years. Because once it becomes a career and other people get involved, you lose that passion because it becomes corporate. It becomes, you've got KPIs, you've got things to hit, you feel pressure. And it was once something that made you feel so good, now makes you feel like it's work and it's a chore.
Obviously, Sweat is extremely successful business. You're successful. What is your kind of philosophy around money?
I'll tell you a story. So the other day, I was in a meeting and I had the worst reception in the world. They said, Kayla, you're in a meeting and it cut out. And I was like, oh, what? They're like, we're just going to ask you some interview questions and we'll write down your answers. And I didn't hear who I was doing the interview for, but I was like, oh, whatever. I say what I say, so I'll just answer the question. And the first question was, and I never talk about money, so I was really startled with this question. They said, now, if someone just gave you $10,000 right now, they pass it to you, how would you spend it? How would you invest it? And I was thinking in my head, why am I getting asked a money question? But they're like, just answer it. Just don't think, just answer it. I said, I would give it away. I would find a family member that needed it, my grandma, my grandpa, my dad, my mum's LASIK eye surgery, if she needed it, I would just give it away. And they're like, that's just so typical you, Kayla. Like, and I said, because I think I'm rich. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, so I have a family that loves me. If I lost everything, I could go to my mum's house, my parents' house, I could stay there. I would be fed. I'd have a bed. I'd have a roof over my head. I'd have all my cousins over. I have my husband. I have my kids. I'm rich in love. That's what I am. I don't need the money. The money I give away. Someone else has it because I think I'm rich. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think what you're saying is that you thought even when you were making that first PT money, maybe that first few $1,000s a week from PT.
I was the richest person in the world.
That was your freedom point, wasn't it?
I was charging $1 a minute, so $30 for 30 minutes. I was the richest person in the world.
Yeah. And so you really believe that at that moment, that was the caveat that changed your life when you discovered that you could, because you had the family element and because you were just earning the $1 a minute at the time, that was your freedom point.
Yeah. So I specifically remember a conversation I had, and I won't say with who, but I remember saying to them, listen, if all else fails, right? So we have no money. I'm rich because I have my family. I have my friends. But the person I was speaking to didn't have a family, didn't have a friend. And that's why they valued money so much. And I was trying to explain to them, the reason you care about money so much, the reason that you want so much money is because you don't have that I'm rich. You don't have that family. You don't have those friends. So you need that money. Whereas for me, I don't need a thing.
Do you think then the reason that you've attracted so much abundance in terms of money into your life and in terms of business into your life is because you've had that detachment, because your family has kept you so grounded?
That, and the fact that because I think I'm rich in that way, all I care about is making other people feel like I feel. So when you have like a really good meal and you go, oh my God, I had this really good meal, it was at this place. You want people to experience that because it was really good for you. All I care about is having people feel like they have a family, having that community. Like you like my mum. You have a conversation with her. You straight away, you talk to her about food today. Yeah, like, I'm not like you to be in the kitchen, and she made a joke. She's like, I'm unload the dishwasher. And for me, that little conversation that you had with my mum, I was like, Frankie feels like he has another mum right now. Because
for me, obviously, I came here with a bag of clothes and $6,000. So I even remember the first time I came to your house in Adelaide. Like, your mum just made me welcome. She's like doing the food, this and the other. It was just nice for me because like that's the side of Australia that I love. Like that, it doesn't matter whether you're a Greek family or you're an Italian family, wherever you've come from and then ended up in Australia as a white family, because like we've all immigrated here at some point. It's like how welcoming they make you feel, and it's just wholesome, isn't it? Yeah. And I realised that was why you'd got where you'd got to because of that grounded footing. Like even your dad's just chilled. Like your dad's just like
he's the best. My dad's
just
the
chilled.
Best. So if someone offered me $1 million or just a moment to watch one of my family and friends feel like they are loved, I would take that moment. Like I would literally take that moment over $1 million because I genuinely get happiness and enjoyment out of watching people feel like they're a part of a family and they feel loved. And they always come up to me after. They're like, your family's amazing. I feel like I have my own family. I'm like, like when they say that to me, I'm like, oh my God.
Is that, have you kind of used that ethos to build your community?
100%. I started off doing one-on-one sessions and I felt like something wasn't right. Like in the one-on-one sessions, they would really like confide in me about stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm doing good things, but like there was something off. And then I remember one of my clients was like, oh, I feel really, what did she say? I felt really anxious. Can I bring my cousin? And I was like, yeah, bring your cousin. And watching those two train together and play off each other, I was like, this is really cool. And then another girl felt a little bit lost. I said, you can join, I used to call them, actually I won't say what I used to call them because it's a bit rude, but it was a funny joke between us. I said, you can, actually no, I will say what I used to call them. So they were Lebanese. And I used to say to them, because they were always late, I said, you're starting to run on Lebanese time, because I felt like all my Lebanese clients were late. And I said, you can join the Lebanese girls. And then so she joined them and she's like, I feel like I've got like two little sisters now. And it just kept building. And then I started doing group classes and it was like there was this little family that was there. It was just amazing. It was actually amazing.
So in essence then, even though there's a lot of planning in terms of like how you've monetized the back end as a business and all that stuff and how you've built all that infrastructure, there has to be planning that goes into that. In terms of evolving the community into a place where it can be evolved into a business, that's all just been like a natural evolvement.
Completely natural. That's why all the boot camps were free. We did all the boot camps around the world. Every single one was for free. So they could come and they could work out together and they could leave as friends. And those voices spoke to, like a good restaurant, 20 other people saying, I had the best time, because there was no expectation. They didn't have to pay money. They expected nothing. They came for free and they got a boot camp. They got friends. They got an atmosphere. They got endorphins and they went and told everyone. And that's how we marketed us as a business.
So for all the people that are listening to this that have their own brand or want to build a community, what would your key insight be and advice on that?
People ask me this all the time. I don't know. I feel like you have to have something in you that wants that. So it's like, I don't know if you're born with it or it's the way that you're raised, but I feel like some of the most successful community businesses are off the back of people who have had really good family lives or people who haven't had good family lives that want that for other people. I don't know if you can just teach community, and that's probably why it's done so well.
Do you ever get, obviously, like when you look at how you operate and it's very clear online and in person, you're very family orientated, same as me. I love my family too, but like obviously not everyone's given the same gifts. I mean, my mum and dad have been married 44 years, your mum and dad have been married a long time. close-knit family, right? When we come from that, it's really hard. I get asked all the time by other people, like, oh, you know, what's it like? How can I create that? Because they've gone in the pursuit of money, like you say, because they've felt that void. How would you tell someone to fill that void who thinks they might be in the pursuit of money right now, but they realise now from listening to this that they may have just been in the pursuit of money in the way that they have been because they didn't feel loved, or they didn't feel that love from the family unit?
I don't know how I'd say this. It's like almost like it's like a meditation, isn't it? It's like kind of like close your eyes, strip away all the money. What do you have? Like, who are your closest people? Who are the people that you can tell anything to? Who are the people that you can run to? Who are the people that if you got in a car accident and you needed them to, you needed immediate help, like who would you ring? Like, do you have those people in your life? Like, can you think of your best friend that would never tell your secrets to anyone? Like, can you think of the closest person to you that you know that you can do anything with at any time, that is always there for you? Like, if you don't have that, then you're in the wrong spot, because money is not forever. And if it is, and you don't have all those things, you're poor.
Yeah. So the true definition of poor to you is not feeling that love in some area of your life other than your bank balance.
Yeah, 100%. I'd feel so poor if I didn't have my family. If I had $1 billion and not my family, I'm poor.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because when I've obviously interviewed maybe 200, maybe 250 entrepreneurs all around the world, and I'd say the most connected ones are the ones that have like the wife at home, like the children, the ones that are truly embody their family first over everything else, are the ones that, one, they make a lot more money anyway, because I think as a byproduct of disconnecting yourself from the outcome of money, you make more money anyway. Because like because when I'm in that bubble of Dubai and it's all about revenue this, revenue that, I make less money than when I land in Australia for 5 days, and my revenue goes up 73% because I'm not connected. I'm not having someone talk to me at breakfast about revenue goals and this and turnover. And
I couldn't think of anything worse.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's why I had to get out of Dubai for a bit, because that's all everyone was just yapping about revenue and this and what you're doing this and funnels, and and lads going out to dinner talking about that, and I'm like, but I talk to people that are worth way more than any of us at this table right now, and none of them are talking about this shit. This is absolute shit, and they all can't get what I'm talking about.
What are they talking about though?
They're mainly talking about funnels, about...
No, sorry, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the people that are doing really, really well. The people that are
doing... Oh, what are people... They're talking about, similar to you, they're talking about like alignment. Purpose-driven type stuff. Like, and that's how they're making so much money. So they've disconnected. So they've made their first little bit of money, which gives them the security blanket, which is what, you know, allows them to be free. And then once they've ticked the needs goal, they go all in on themselves and becoming the best version of themselves, so that they don't have to. And then as they become that person, they make more money anyway, but they don't have to connect it just to like revenue, funnels, this, sales. Do you know what I mean? It's just not their vocabulary.
Yeah.
I know a mutual friend of ours that makes really good money, that's got really good clients in the UK, and I don't ever hear him talk about money. Like, and he's got a lot of fucking money. But he didn't always have a lot of money. Like, so it kind of just clicked for me. Yeah. You know, I think what you have to do, Kayla, I don't know whether you agree with me on this, but I think what you have to do is you have to go through stages as a man, especially because men are more driven by money, I think, initially in the initial stage than women entrepreneurially. I don't know whether you agree, but from your journey, it seems that way. But I kind of twigged onto this at about 30 years old. But you twigged onto it from like 16 or something. Like,
yeah. I used to just, I don't know, you said that people don't always have money, so that you speak to people that they talk about, you know, alignment, they talk about family, they talk about this, but they didn't always have money, but they always had those values. They always, even if you talk to them when they didn't have money, the things that they loved the most would be their family. The things that they value the most would be their family and their friends, and loyalty and respect. Whereas you speak to someone else who isn't like that, they'll talk to you about revenue and funnels, and they're this and they're that, and you're just like, you're poor.
And there's nothing wrong with them talking about that. And obviously there are times I understand you have to talk about that. I have meetings where I have to talk about a cold email funnel or some boring thing that might lead to revenue in the business. But if your whole life and every conversation that you have is structured around just that,
I agree.
I kind of think you're a little bit empty.
I agree. So I say poor, feeling poor. the word is empty. But people who talk about money and who love money and that don't have anything else, they don't feel that way. They truly believe that money is everything. They believe that that their conversations that they have are interesting, that women or men will be more attracted to them if they have these conversations, and that's just not me and not who I surround myself with.
Do you think that by talking about those topics, you literally attract the wrong type of partner into your life then, potentially?
Yeah, if you're talking about topics that don't interest you, that you're only talking about them because you think that they're interesting to someone else, then yeah, sure, of course you're going to attract the wrong person in your life. Absolutely. So you're
literally building an attractive vessel that attracts someone who you don't even resonate with.
Correct. Do you think you do that, Frankie?
Not at all, no.
Good.
I do a lot of work on the internal and stuff like that. You know, I'm a very spiritual guy. I am. But
do you think you attract the people that you talk the way that you talk? Do you think that attracts the person that you're interested in?
I think I've let myself down in the past in terms of what I'm attracted to as a man compared to what goes on in my head. I think that's where I've let myself down. I think I can get very drawn into the beauty of a woman on the external without knowing what I already know in my head is what attracts me internally. Does that make sense? So I can get very sucked into she's beautiful, she's this, whatever. You know what I mean? But then on from that, it's like I'll see a red flag and I'll ignore it because of the beauty in the past, but I've set the boundary now. And that was something I've had to learn recently. It's about setting boundaries.
I heard you recently say that you quickly picked up a red flag and you just cut it off, which is good.
Yeah. Because in the last 18 months, I've seen red flags, massive ones, that I've allowed because of attraction, because of lust, because of everything. And I think as a man, you let that go for so much time, but then you have to set the boundary so you can evolve. You know, and I know. The thing is, what really pissed me off, and it's my own fault, is that I have known this for since I was 30 really turned my life. Like when I hit 30 as a man, I was like, right, I'm switched on now. But I hit 30 and I'm like, I know these things, but then I'll ignore what I know. And that you can't do that. But this doesn't just go for relationships and for trying to attract that. This goes for what you will and won't accept in your business, what you will and won't accept in your life, what you will and won't accept with your family, what you will and won't accept in a relationship. So it's the whole thing.
How you do anything is how you do everything. The biggest lesson, I think, or the most important thing that someone said to me that I repeat to everyone that I meet, and I'll repeat it to you now, is if you don't learn your lesson in life, it will get sent to you again and again and again in different forms until you learn it.
So I'll give you a clear example of that. We're both talking about our family and our values, right, on this podcast, right? And as we're talking about it, I know exactly what you're saying because I come from the same family, the exact same family that you've got. That's why I resonate with your family, right? And that's why me and your mom have that relationship. We can just chat on the phone, right? But then the girls that I've dated, they don't come from that same family. They come from perhaps a more broken home. Now there's nothing wrong with having a broken childhood or coming from a broken home. I'm not judging anyone for that. But if you do not address those core wounds as a man or as a woman, and heal yourself from those traumas, you'll project them onto your partners, your future partners.
100%.
This was the boundary I had to set because the last 3 girlfriends I've had over the last 5 years have all come with the same wound. And I've overlooked the wound that I already knew from day one because of lust, because they're beautiful. And you can't do that in life. You have to see the wood for the trees. That's what I've learned.
You're so right. I agree with everything you just said.
But it's taken me a long time to learn that, But one of the good things about our relationship, I think, is the fact that you call me out on some shit.
Oh, yeah.
I remember being sat at the Cali, in Brisbane. You called me out on the branding and up-leveling the podcast, and then I went and did that. And just other things you call me out on. But one of the things that I learned from you the other day, and that I want to unpack on this podcast for everyone listening, business-wise, is that when you invited me to that event the other day where you're filming content, I thought, oh yeah, she's a fitness brand, fitness woman. I know you don't like the word, but the world calls you it, but I know you don't call yourself it, but fitness influencer. I know you hate that before we start. But I go there and I'm thinking, this is just easy because you're passionate about it. This is that. It's easy. So I sit there at the back of you four girls. So I walk in, you four girls are there. You've got your head of creative, your creative director, your videographer, all these fancy titles. Anyway, I'm thinking, I've been around people like you in the game for a long time. So I'm thinking I know this game. But I'm curious to learn what I don't know. I am still curious about what I sit at the back and I'm sat there for an hour. I'm like, there's way more to this, and the branding element and the things like this that people just can't see. And I want you on this podcast to unlock that today, because I thought there's so many lessons within this that I can't articulate, but I know that you can, right? So I want to help you do that. So I walk in, and most people think when you're a creator, when you're filming content, you just set the set up and you just start filming content. But I want you to break down. One of the things I noticed was you scripted all the content. You had scripted, you had plans, you had color tone palettes, you had lighting rigs, you had all this other stuff. I want you to unpack all of that and how you plan for that day so that you can get the most articulate content that you can. Okay,
so I think I should start by saying the reason I am so passionate about family and friends and I remove myself so far from money, and I have to be honest about this, is because I have teams that do it for me. Because one of the things that I said when I first ever started this business was, I don't want to sexualize myself to sell a product. I only ever want to work with women. I don't want to align myself with brands that I don't agree with. And I didn't want to do a lot of things, but one of the things was I don't want to be responsible for the money side, and I don't want to constantly have conversations about money, because the more I have conversations about money, the more I attract people that I don't want to be around, the more stress I have, and the more that I lose my passion for my actual job and my concentration, my focus for that area that I want to be focused in, which was community, boot camps, training. So I was like, I need someone else to do that. I need another side, another department. So let's just be really clear. The reason I can focus on that sort of stuff is because I also have teams that do that for me. They're called finance. Anyway, so let's start with that. So let's unpack the day. So the day that you came and you visited was called a campaign day. So these are the ads that go out to the audiences that we target to get them to train with sweat. And so the reason that they're scripted is because that we know that certain words and we know that certain things that we say are more attractive to our audience. And it's not stuff that we're like, okay, like data shows that this, yes, sometimes we do that, but it's also like, okay, we've said this before in the past, and the way that we've delivered that needs to be a little bit more softer because we're talking to beginners. So we really break down our audience and who we're talking to. We're talking to new mums today. We're talking to, really advanced athletes, so we can use that stronger language. And that's what you're watching Dee from behind the camera say, okay, now we're talking to this person, now we're talking to this person, so we can alter our language. That was the first thing. In terms of color palettes, we've learned that if you do a color analysis, which you haven't done, by the way, Frankie, yet, you can learn which colors look nice and bright on you, and therefore you look more friendly and more you on camera. So then you saw me wearing more like browns and reds and warmer autumn tones because I'm a deep autumn color palette. So you've seen that. The room that we selected was also curated. It was a warmer room, so it wasn't this white, stark, scary looking or black, dark gym because we were speaking to beginners. So we've got a very nice kind of like this aesthetic that would attract someone to say, okay, well, I feel comfortable working out with them. This is not to manipulate anyone. This is to make people feel comfortable. And the way that we do that is through our tone of voice, our clothing that we wear, and where we're situated.
No, but the thing I loved about the whole thing was the fact of you start from scripting by who you're talking to. And I know so many brands that are doing we'll just talk money. I know you don't want to talk money, but say 5 to 20 million that still don't go in as much depth. They don't even think about who they're actually talking to. And I think that's why they're not at 100 mil plus, because they haven't dialed in that element. I think that element is so crucial, but I didn't realize I knew it was crucial, but I even saw how much more crucial it is when I'm hearing you switch scenes and switch things we're talking to these people now. Okay, cool. I can tone that down a bit. Or we're talking to these people. Right, okay. And I'm I get that. Just for me, for a content creator, before you do anything, you should know who you're talking to and what you're talking to them about. Because if you don't, you can't cut through any noise on social media. But it'll also, what I realized was, it brings your ad cost massively down because you're talking directly to the type of audience you want to intervene with and cutting through the conversation. So I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in the industry are really confused because a lot of the trainers and a lot of the influencers, they're quite advanced. So they, and you are who you hang around as well. So if they're hanging around really advanced people and say they're going to World Gym, which is a big bodybuilding gym, they feel really confident. So when they get in front of the camera, they start saying things like, just do it. It's not that hard. Just get up. It's 5 a.m., drink your coffee and go to the gym, take your pre-workout. And that language and the people that you're actually speaking to, the people that are wanting to see these ads, that are wanting to join the gym, that are wanting to start working out, they're all beginners. They have kids. They've got busy lives. They don't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because, they're in the room breastfeeding their kids. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that language is so startling and it's so scary and it's so intimidating that you're not going to sign with that company. Using belittling language towards women and not going to help you acquire new members at all. Like, that's not what women want. Maybe a small portion need that tough love, but the majority just want someone to say, we get it. You don't have any equipment. It's 30 minutes. It's at home. We understand you have kids. We understand that you're busy. Like, here's a workout. We'll support you every step of the way.
And you retain the client on your platform, the customer, because you are talking directly to them at all times because you know who you're talking to at the start.
Yeah.
Right.
But also because I've trained them. A lot of fitness influencers, and they are, by the way, I just want to say, fitness influencers, they're amazing, but what they do is they talk about their lives, and they're not necessarily personal trainers. They're people who influence you to maybe go to the gym or start a healthy lifestyle. But for me, I'm a personal trainer at the end of it all, and I have trained thousands of women, and not just in big boot camps, but one-on-one in my parents' house, in my parents' backyard, with a Bunnings, by the way, is like a hardware store, Bunnings tarp that I bought. So it would stop the rain from getting on my really cheap, crappy equipment that I could only afford, stuff from Kmart, what would be the equivalent to Kmart, Target. That's where I started. So I understand women in every stage of their life. And I've learnt the hard way. I used to punish mums for being late. They used to come in 5 minutes late and they're, oh, I'm sorry, I had to get the kids. I was like, nah, I don't want to hear it, burpees. And they would do them. Now that I've had 2 kids, if someone said, nah, I would literally now I'm more understanding of people and their journeys and what they're going through. And I think that just comes with age.
I know this is a topic that I want to talk to you about because it just happens and it kills my soul. It kills my soul. Like, you talked very openly there. You made a decision from day one that you're not going to sexualize yourself on the internet, right? Obviously, in the game I'm in, I've seen a lot of this happen, and I've seen a lot of the quick money that people can get. But what I've learned from talking to the girls that do sexualize themselves on the internet, it just kills their soul from the inside out. Like, in terms of that, how can you empower women through this conversation to be able to be themselves, boss it, make the money online, but without sexualizing themselves? What advice and guidance would you give on that? Because you've seen it right the way from the start.
I mean, it really comes down to your morals and how you feel after you post or that content. Also, what is your target audience? Because if you're looking at building a community of women and you're choosing to highly sexualize your content, unfortunately, the people that follow you will be people who are attracted to that, perhaps the opposite sex. So when you go into your following and you want to build a community of women, and your following is 86% men that aren't purchasing your product because all they're following you for is that highly sexualized content, you realize then are kind of stuffed up. And
then you also realize that I've seen as well that then these girls think, maybe the next stage is to sell OnlyFans because I'm trying to sell my activewear, but I've only got 26% female audience. And it's not going well. So then that's when they sexualize themselves again. And they go even deeper down the rabbit hole. It kind of pulls them in. Quick one for you guys. You may have seen I've started to mentor people because I was getting people in the DMs reaching out, asking me for loads of different advice and guidance through many realms of what I've been through in my life. And I've created a mentorship program now that helps you create the reality that you want to live. It helps you make more money, on average an extra 30 to 100K there is that's lying within your business that you don't know where it is or how to access it. I help people access that, and I also help them get every other area of their life right so they can improve their relationships, so they can improve the way they communicate, the way they network, and everything else. We work on the whole package. It's not just one area. We're not just in the pursuit of money, but we're in the pursuit of the purpose and the money and aligning it all together so that you go in the right direction to being the best version of yourself. If that is something that resonates with you on every level of your being and you want to work with me to take yourself to the next level, I would love you to click the link below this video and go to my mentorship page and make an inquiry. But say you were at that point as a woman, how would you advise them? Because obviously they're asking you for advice at this point. How would you advise them to pivot so that they can make it more wholesome?
I mean, it comes down to a lot of different things. It comes down to, your tone of voice, your language, your environment that you're in, the clothing that you wear, the angles that you film on. It would be more about softening your content to be more relatable to women. There are so many amazing personal trainers and amazing fitness influencers that are athletes that do the most amazing content, non-sexualized. They're in sports bras and short shorts, but they're just doing some boss things. So I would say to someone, say they're highly sexualized, their content, I would say, don't even change your outfit. Change your angles and show me what you can do in the gym. So if someone came up to me and they had highly sexualized content and they said, I want to change. I've got a very, very strong male following and I would like a stronger female following. So what I would say was, I wouldn't say change your clothes. I wouldn't. I would say keep your clothes on, whatever your sports bra and shorts that you're wearing. I would say change your camera angles, change the aesthetic that you're filming in. So maybe perhaps go into a home aesthetic. Really show me what you can do as an athlete. That's what I would say to them. So bring out your inner athlete and show me what you can do. You don't have to change your clothes. And that's the first thing people think they have to do. They're like, well, I don't want to cover up. And I'm like, don't. I don't. I wear short shorts and a sports bra just like you do.
But you're not filming the angles from an angle that's set in a provocative way.
No, absolutely not.
But also by filming that, when I've spoken to many creators like yourself, and I know the kind of financials that these creators do in the way that they do it, by doing it, one, they're helping people at a general population level, most of them that make real money. They're not overly sexualized, the ones that make the real money, that actually help people. So I think that the whole creator space has been misguided into thinking that the sexualized content makes the most amount of money. And the truth is that, one, you're selling your soul, and two, that's not how you make it. If
you feel like you're selling your soul, so I'll give you a stat, and this is from the actual person's mouth, and I can't give names, but it is someone in America. So it was a girl in America. She has highly sexualized content and a lot of followers. I would say more than me. So I said to her, she reached out to me. She said, look, it's not going really well. I said, look, let me take a look at your page. She said, I would love that. I said, look, it looks like your content is pretty sexualized. Do you have a large male following? She said, I do. And I said, well, what do you want to have? And she said, I want to have a female following. I want to have females do my program. And she sells programs that are more targeted to females. So let's say booty programs and things like that. I said, okay. I said, and how many people do you have doing your program? Keep in mind, she has more followers than me. She said about 2,000. I said, okay. So for a person looking outside at a person who has millions and millions to only have 2,000 women doing her program, she was like, I just don't know where I've gone wrong. I said, where you've gone wrong is you're wanting to advertise to women, but you're advertising
to men.
Well, it's not necessarily to men. It's just to that gaze that just... It's the wrong market. It's a different market. It's not health and fitness. It's something else.
Yeah. I love the way you've unpacked that, because it's the truth. It literally is the truth. I've seen it so many times, and what I have to be the counselor on the phone when people are trying to remove that content as well, when they've gone too far that way. So it's and I understand it from a psychological level, how it affects people.
So I don't think people actually know. I know they know that you remove content, but I don't feel like you say it enough. So, Frankie, you remove this content all the time. Yeah. So you see firsthand
for the biggest women in the world. I'd say the top 5 women in the world I've represented.
And you removed their content because they feel they've sort of backtracked and said this is highly sexualized.
100%.
I need you to take this down.
People don't realize. Like I try and subtly save women through my conversations, through any podcast I do. I try and subtly say it, that any woman that overly sexualizes themselves on the internet, every single woman, whether you're talking top of the game, top 10 women in the world, or whether you're talking like, you know, Jenny down the street who's got 30k followers, right? That's just your normal girl that's built a good following. Anyone that over-sexualizes regrets it. One, their relationship with any future partners kills it straight away. They build an audience of people that externally looks good but doesn't reflect their internal conversation with themselves when they sit with themselves at night. 3, it's like when these they find that their friends that they're surrounded by, the girls that they think are their closest friends aren't even their closest friends because they're not even in alignment with them. See, girls that act like that and women that act like that, I tend to be surrounded by other girls that act like that. So it's just a big minefield that once you go down that rabbit hole, and I'm not criticizing women at all, but I'm just saying that I've spoken to a lot of women that have overly sexualized content, and it never works out good for you. Like, you always end up soul destroyed in one area of your life. And the most soul destroying thing when you have a conversation with these high level women is to speak to a woman that's achieved millions and millions and millions of dollars online, has a full bank account, but the true cost of her bank account full of dollars is that she's so far removed from the alignment with herself that even me speaking to her, it hurts my heart, speaking to her, because I have a sister. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm like, wow, if this was my sister, like, fuck, like, I just couldn't. It just kills that internal conversation. And I know that to a lot of you listening to this might skip over this bit and think, oh, Frankie, what's the relevance to this? It's like, well, the relevance is like, when you see the darkest, deepest depths of hell that these people have to go to on the other side of what you perceive as success, that you just don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So I urge every single one of you listening to this right now, just think, like, the reason why I got Kayla to talk about it is because she doesn't do it, and because she can speak into like how you can make success online, whatever success is to you, but without compromising your true internal values. And all I would also say is, caveat on that, is the fact of, like, if you feel like you need to sexualize yourself on the internet at any point in your time, whether you're a man or a woman, right, there's an internal conversation going on there that needs to happen, and some internal healing that needs to happen so that you can overcome that, so you do not have to do it.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say.
I love it. I think one other thing I will say is, back to my morals when I started. So I had in year 7, so I was 11, 12 years old. We're talking about the internet. I feel really old right now. And the teacher was talking to us about writing things and putting photos on the internet. And she said, look, the internet, I will tell you this, like, whatever you put on the internet stays on the internet. Frankie does take it down, but I'm just saying that if you can afford to work with us, like, let's be honest, it's not cheap, is it? Let's be fair. Yeah. So she said it stays on the internet. And she said, so what I want you to do for the rest of your life, and for some reason, by the way, I never paid attention in school. So she had me hooked. I was really listening to her. She goes, for the rest of your life, she goes, think of the person that you love the most, that you respect the most. And for me, I love you, mum and dad, but I really thought of my grandma and grandpa at this point. She goes, now pretend they're standing over your shoulder, and pretend they're watching everything that you write, and pretend they're watching everything that you upload for the rest of your life, and live your life like that. And I promise you, she scarred me. Everything that I wrote and every photo or video that I uploaded, I always thought about her standing over my shoulder being like, is this okay to upload? So that's how I've sort of like lived my life.
Yes, and like whether you need it to be the universe, family, God, or whatever you used as your metric of controlling of someone that you think's looking over you to stop you posting that stuff, I would use it. Yeah. Because what you're saying is 100% true. Like, it just takes you down a narrative that, one, takes you away from the ultimate goal where you can build a business to exit. Because you know what, in all these scenarios that we're talking about, you cannot exit these businesses because they're attached to you, and they're attached to you in a way that even can't be exited. So you're building this thing that you can't even sell it anyway. Like, it's just you lowering your own worth which hurts you and makes you short-term cash, but costs you long-term everything else. It's just honestly, when you work out that, if you sat there on a piece of paper in front of you and you're just working this out on a spreadsheet, you could not make any form of adjustment that makes it work. It just doesn't work.
Right.
So there you go. You got me to drop it. I can't believe you did that. You walked me straight into the content removal conversation. But
I had to.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to touch on it, but I suppose we've gone there now. So I hope that helps some of you out there that are kind of dealing with it, because at the end of the day, I just want you to handle it in a better way. You know what I mean?
Do you know what? I think that I will. Sorry, you can cut this out if you don't want to include it. But I think, Frankie, for you, I know you don't love talking about the content removal, but you give people a second chance. Like, if people really analyze their business and they say, look, like, I feel like after listening to this podcast, I've kind of stuffed up and I want to reset, and I don't know how because it's too late now. What goes on the internet stays on the internet, like I just said. You give people that second chance to really reset their life. Yeah, and say, I don't want to be like this anymore. I want a new me, and you give people that chance. So that's really nice, and I feel like people need to know that.
It is, and I'm trying to give them a second chance before they even go down that route. In terms of, like, this is why I create this podcast, to help people break patterns, flip perspectives in their life. You know what I mean? And I talk about my vulnerabilities as I've gone through this journey, what things I've got to overcome as a man to relate to people, so that they can see that, you know, it's not easy. You know what I'm saying? It's from both sides of the coin, whether you're a man or a woman. But no, I understand what you're saying. And I generally have helped, as you know, a lot of people at various levels in life and stardom, shall we say, re-correct their image. I'm just trying to save people the money before they even have to go there. It's like, if you need to sexualize yourself on the internet at any point in time, you need to do internal work, not externally sexualize yourself. It's telling you a story, and you can see it within yourself before it happens. So you just tone it back and go and deal with the internal trauma. Because I speak to all these people, they have the internal trauma anyway, and they still have to deal with the internal trauma. So even when you've gone and put content like that on the internet, right? And you quote unquote are this boss babe, you've gone out on the internet, rah, 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 you've done all that stuff, you've made all this money. You're still sat there with yourself and the money, right? Yourself. And you're going to be on your own, because the men that you're attracted to, or the men that are around you at that time, if you're a female, aren't going to be the type of men that you envisioned yourself being around. Just not. And then you sat there with yourself and having to have the own internal conversation on the topic. So you still have to deal with the trauma anyway. So why not deal with the trauma before it goes and affects you and affects everything else? That's why I wanted to talk to you about it.
I have a question for you. So what I hear that you're saying is that for some women, their trauma causes them, or the result of their trauma causes them to overly sexualize themselves on the internet for attention or whatever it is, or money or whatever it is, because they don't have, either they've got the trauma or they don't have the family to back them or whatever it is. What do you feel is the equivalent for men?
Men can over-sexualize themselves as well because of trauma related to it. So, for argument's sake, I was brought up, obviously me and my sister, right? And from a young age, I felt like my mum loved my sister more than me. And that led me, when I was younger, and when I was going through the boxing days and stuff like that, to be overly promiscuous, because I was trying to seek love from women through sex, right? So I was going through that whole debacle in life. The way that I overcame that was, like, I was left soul destroyed myself. So I know how soul destroying over-sexualizing yourself is. I didn't do it on the internet, but I know how it is in real life. And as a man, when that happens in your life and you're dealing with all that kind of stuff, your energy just zap, because it's going in the pursuit of one thing, and that thing isn't your purpose. So that's how you feel as a man, right? The way I overcame it was, I went to counseling. I mean, this was back in 2016, 17. Like, I went to counseling, talked about it, uncovered my trauma, which is how I can talk into trauma and trauma that women face, because I've spoken to thousands of women that face these traumas, and I've dealt with trauma in my own life. You have to overcome the trauma. Men in this world right now are taught that overcoming the trauma is to listen to all these red pill influencers that tell you to go and have 5 girlfriends and this, that, the other. That's not how you overcome trauma. You are literally divorcing yourself from your higher self even further by pursuing that thing, and by thinking you're in the pursuit of your greater self by doing that. the most masculine men, the most realist men in life, lean in to the inner work that needs to be done so they can turn up as a whole man for the woman they want to be with. So you're not making more broken women in the future. So it's a man's responsibility to do that. The reason why these women that I speak to are the way that they are is because the family unit in their younger days was broken up unfairly. A lot of cases, absent dad in most cases is what leads to this. If a woman has an absent dad in her life, what happens is that she over sexualizes herself potentially to get the attention of men because it's the only way she knows how to get attention from men. And then she might make all this money, but then you have to go through all the trauma of what that money brings to you. And I've seen this pattern over and over again. But for men, it's like, you know, if you feel unloved as a child by either parent, you will be overly promiscuous in your younger days and have lots of sexual partners as well. And then that leads you to your own trauma. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem is in men in society, it's celebrated that you're overly promiscuous. Yeah. With women, it's not celebrated, right? I understand both why, because a woman's like sexual essence is more sacred than a man's. It really truly is. I understand why it's different. But that's how I would break down both paths of that for both male and female. I don't know if I've done it any good.
You did a really good job. Yeah, it really makes sense. I think, like, just even, again, like, you don't have to include this, but, like, if I was to unpack my childhood, my dad and my mum are still together. And my dad never raised his voice at me. My dad was never rude to me. My dad just loved me so much. I used to, if I fell over, I used to not look forward to, but I used to like run to my dad to show him because he would freak out if there was one scratch on my body. It was like we were his world, like we were his princesses. He loves us so much. And so I've never had a problem with men or seeking the attention from men because my dad's the example of that's what love is. Yeah.
And when you have a good example from a good masculine figure as a woman, where in your childhood, that sets the tone for the relationships that you'll have in your adulthood. And it also set the tone for you to say what you will and won't accept in all areas of relationships and life going forward. So when you come up against a hurdle where you might not be going through, as a woman like you, where you go, right, well, things aren't working out in this relationship how I want them to, or I just won't accept that. You can walk away from it and then go and find what does work for you as a woman. Mm-hmm. And you can't do that unless you've had that good masculine figure in your life, you know? Right. And that's what you need. So you had the softer side, the more loving side with your mum, and then your dad was a supportive vessel.
So let's break down my mum, because this is where my personal training side comes into. So everyone looks at my mum, and I'm going to call my mum out this, and my mum knows this. But everyone looks at my mum and thinks my mum is like this soft, loving Greek mum that will do anything for you, and she is now. But growing up with my mum went through menopause, and I think that who raised me and who raised my sister was two different women. So my mom was going through a really, really hard time, and she would take a lot out on me. She would yell. She said, I used to yell at you, and I used to just forget what I was yelling about because I was so angry, but I didn't know what I was angry about. And my mom was scared of everything. She was raised in a Greek household with really traditional parents, and it was don't do this, don't do that, make sure you do this, make sure you do that, look after your dad, look after your mum, clean the house, do this. So my mom was very scared of everything. So my trigger for my clients was when they said, oh, I can't. Because my mum would always say, oh, I can't. Like, mum, let's work out together. Oh, I can't. Oh, let's go do this together. Like, let's go to the ride at the show. Oh, I can't. No, I'm scared. I don't want to. Like, so I used to get so annoyed. So my step into personal training came from not a dislike for women, but a dislike for how women spoke about themselves. It genuinely triggered me when they said I couldn't. Like, I get annoyed when women say to me, I can't, or that's too hard, when it's not too hard at all. And so that's why I stepped into personal training. And that's why I was so strict. And that's why I was punishing mums for being late. Because when I used to just hear, I can't. And so it was a place of negativity, and it turned into a place of positivity when I actually understood as a woman where that I can't came from. But yeah, that was my mum.
Is there any like traumas from your childhood that you had to overcome, and you've had to overcome it through this journey with fitness and everything else?
No. So like, I don't have anything I look back on, oh my God, it was just literally my mum and her behavior and how scared she was of just life. And she even, I think my sister is a little bit like that. And even I was a little bit like that. And then I sort of snapped out of it, traveling the world and meeting people. But there was no trauma. I used to walk to school every single day. And my school was just down the road. And I used to think in my head, I am so lucky to have my family. Like, I'm so lucky to have, I love my mum, I love my dad, I could never complain about them. And when people at school used to come up to me and say, I hate my dad because he did this, I hate my mum because she, I was like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I literally could not relate, especially people that said stuff about their dads. I couldn't relate. Whereas, that was my childhood. So I want to make sure that people know that it is definitely how you're raised as well. Like, for the people who have had hard childhoods, for the people who have had that trauma, like, you know, you said you felt like your mum loved your sister more than you. But that's a lot.
But here's a caveat to that. That was all in my head, right? A lot of the traumas that we create in our lives are all in our head from a perception of that our perceptions are created before we're 8 years old. So that perception was created before I was 8 years old. That wasn't the truth in my reality. That was just a perception. And I took that perception and it affected every relationship up until the point when I started to deal with it, which was around like 2016 when I'm like, all right, I've got to get a handle on this because I'm having these exchanges with these people, these women, but like, it's not giving me fulfillment right now. So it's and obviously you get looked at in a certain way from a male perspective. Oh, you're a hero, but you're not, are you? Because you're the people that think you're a hero. They're not the kind of guys you want to be surrounded by either, right? So it's like there's a whole section of this. It's a maturity. It's like you have to look at it maturely and go, right, okay, I've got to change because I want to up level my life here. You know, my whole life changed within that 2016, 2017 period.
How?
Because I was radically honest with myself. I said, right, this is not acceptable. This is not how you roll. Look how you actually want to roll and who you actually are, and then look who you're stepping into. They're not the same men, right? So then when I recreated back to being who I was and started to lean in more into that, that's when things started to take a different path. Started contentremover.com, work for myself, changed my life, did millions online, started to create abundance for my family. Like, it just changed my life because but it all starts from being radically honest. So the essence of what I'm trying to get people to do within our conversation today, especially around the masculine and feminine stuff, is like, just be radically honest with where you are in your life and what's going on. Just be radically honest, because it's between you and a journal, between you and yourself. It's not, you're not going on an Instagram story and saying, hey, today I found out that I've overly sexualized myself, or I've overly done this, or I've overly done that. It's not about that. It's just about being radically honest with yourself today, because that'll allow yourself the fortitude to free yourself from the prison that you're creating for yourself down the track.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I want to say.
I like that.
Yeah. So there.
I just wanted to make sure there was something because I feel like there's a lot of talk about women and how women sexualize themselves and what their trauma does and da-da-da-da-da, and it's what I want to know, what is the equivalent for men? Yeah,
look, that literally is the equivalent for men. Like men who have any form of trauma within themselves will either, one or two, they'll either aggressively pursue money, right? Because they felt lack within their childhood, and they haven't addressed those traumas, or they'll aggressively pursue women and sex, right? And it's
or men and sex.
Yeah, well, we're not going to go there because I don't know that narrative. But you know what I'm saying? Those are the two things from my personal experience that I've seen. It's like, if I see a man just in the pursuit of money, or if I see a man just in the pursuit of women, I know that there's trauma at a cellular level that he needs to work on, whether that's breath work, whether that's meditation, whether that's a mushroom journey, however you do it. But there's a conversation that needs to be had. You've been in the online game a long time. What are some of the key things that trigger you, that kind of get your blood boiling around certain topics?
What triggered me personally is people thinking that I'm unapproachable, people telling me that I'm masculine, that I would be hard to be with, people telling me that I have a strong masculine energy. I think this is why the conversation that we're having right now, I'm feeling triggered, because I would literally cut off my arm and give it to someone if they needed it. Like, I want everyone to feel like they have a family. So when people come to me like, you're so boss and you're so masculine and you're so this and you're so that and you're so, you look unapproachable, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So then when you start talking about people being masculine, or that not being an attractive quality, well, not that you said that, but I feel like my triggering makes me feel like you've said that. I'm like, oh, is that me?
Yeah.
I always say to everyone that looks at my daughter, I'm like, I'm so not her. She loves Barbies and princesses and dressing up and makeup and this and that. And I'm like, oh, that's just not me. I'm such a tomboy. So I feel masculine. And that's why I'm so grateful for Jay, because you're right. He does make me feel feminine and loved and I feel like I could just not speak like that.
I think like obviously there's this thing that goes around, and I don't know how much we're going to include in this podcast, but there's this topic that goes around this like boss babe kind of energy. And what I was trying to explain to Kayla off the podcast is the fact of like, you have that energy when you're smashing your business and your life and doing all the content and stuff. I understand that, but you step back into your feminine essence when you come to your partner, to Jay, right? And it's important that a woman can step back into her feminine energy because she needs that in her life. Otherwise, if she's constantly within her masculine, it'll just destroy all her relationships, is what I was saying to you off the podcast. And
I was trying to understand it.
But I think you do understand what I'm saying now.
I really have to, like, honestly, guys, we had to cut half an hour of Frankie trying to explain to me and give me scenarios, so I got it and I didn't get triggered by it. But yes, I understand what you're saying.
Because she got triggered.
I got so triggered. I literally stormed Frankie. He was like, you need to calm down.
You need to chill out. Like, no, because I just tell you how it is.
Yeah, you do.
I just tell you how it is, and you tell me how it is, and that's how we work. So if we have to cut the podcast to have a 20-minute debrief on masculine versus feminine energy, just so we're clear, like, where the whole family gets involved and agrees with me, like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's just bad. But anyway,
I was about to call a friend.
Yeah.
Jay hadn't walked in.
But you thought you felt attacked because that's a trigger that you've not overcome yet.
I 100%.
So it allows, because what I noticed in that conversation that we had off air is that I said something, but you in your head, because of a pattern of your past, potentially thought I was saying something else, and I'm like, I didn't say that. I said this. And you're like, yeah, but I think this. And I'm like, yeah, but you thinking that and me saying it are two different separate
Correct.
Topics.
Yeah.
So like this is an interesting, I don't know how much we can keep in, probably none of it, but you know, it was a real thing, because I've never seen someone like light up like that. Like, oh yeah, you mean this? Like, it's just great. When
you started explaining to me about how you view my behavior when I see Jay or when I speak to Jay, and you said you drop out of that, that masculine energy just leaves you completely. I try to argue with you, and I try to argue with you in front of my staff as well. And I said, no, I don't. And all of them turned around and said, including the ones that said that even themselves have masculine energy, they said to me, you drop straight out and you turn into a little princess, and Jay just gets to look after you. And I'm like, really? They're like, yep. I never realized. And all women need that. That's what I was saying. That's what I was trying to explain to you. That's what. When you ran me through scenarios of when Jay walks in or when I answered the phone, yes, I understand that. We had to break the podcast for 20 minutes so I could explain and articulate this topic, because she got triggered on something I didn't even say. And bearing in mind, we go back a long way, right? So I know. I should just listen to you.
I was like, you know, and everything I've ever said to you always turns out to be a true reflection of how it actually is. Yeah. So, you know. I do want to say something about you, Frankie, because I don't know if I told you on your last podcast, but I tell everyone like this about you, and they're like, oh, should I do Frankie's podcast? Or what is Frankie's podcast? I'm like, he's so good at podcasting. Not only is he good at podcasting, he's so good at listening. And he'll remember things from, you know, the first time you ever met. And when he listens to you, he pieces together your story and then can recap it and give it back to you. But not only can he do that, but he can also make jokes about, you know, things that you said at the start. Like, remember how we were at the shoot and Dee made a joke about, I can't even remember what it was, and you waited to the end of the day and you brought the joke back up and everybody laughed. And I was like, you actually listen, you retain information. You even brought it back up again about Dee and the things that she said at the shoot. And, like, it's just, like, you're just so good at your job. It's insane. Like, I honestly think that this podcast, out of all the podcasts I've ever done, this one's the best one every single time, because you just get it. Like, you just listen. You just get it. Well, even when you get triggered with me? Yeah. Because you know to stop. Like, you literally know to stop a podcast, to explain it to me, to go back onto the podcast for me to get it. Like, you won't. Because, you know, one of the reasons I stopped the podcast and went and explained this to you, because I needed you to understand so that you could move forward. Because because if that constantly triggers you, that'll be a pattern that will present in other areas of your life and business. Like when you're in a contract negotiation or when you're in this and whatever, you will go in, that trigger will remain unless I remove it or give you an opportunity to see it so that you can remove it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to do throughout all these podcasts. I'm trying to understand, and I'm always listening to people. Like you say, you're right in that element. I'm always listening. I never forget nothing, never forget anything in what anyone says to me, because I always like to see congruency between what people are saying and what people are doing, and make sure, especially from a friend like yourself, make sure my friend is she's saying this, but she's triggered in that respect. Okay. How can I bridge that gap? Because that's not congruent right now, because that's not the truth. And when we actually unpacked it and went into that, in depth into that, overcoming that ailment, and you get it, I'm like, how much does that improve your life? Like from there, because you now allow yourself to be free from that, because you don't have to keep going back into that scenario, do you?
Yeah, it's really good. It's like a therapy session.
Yeah, this is
Frankie Lee therapy.
This is what we do. And yeah, guys, like, look, I hope this podcast has unlocked some branding stuff, some business stuff, some relationship stuff, some, self-worth stuff, everything. I hope it's unlocked a load of different doors for you. And I appreciate you, as always, giving me your time and letting me into your home and record this content. And yeah, is there any final message? Well, I like to ask this question, right? If there's one piece of wisdom that you can just leave with every member of this audience today that will move them 1% forward in their life, what would it be to you?
That exactly what I said before to you, that if anyone is listening to this and you're getting a lesson in life served to you again and again and again, it keeps coming in different forms, you haven't learned that lesson. So just pay attention to the signs in your life. And if you think something is reoccurring and it keeps happening to you, it's because it's a lesson that you need to learn.
I want to ask you one more question, because you mentioned about my podcast and how I do it and all that stuff. And I was still thinking predominantly about the trigger and overcoming the trigger and how happy I was that we'd overcome that trigger, right? But what is it that makes the conversations you have, say with someone like me, different over other podcasters then?
So the difference between your podcast and every other podcast that I've done is, and by the way, the podcasts I've been on are absolutely incredible, but you write two things down and you haven't looked once at that sheet. You have your phone over the top of it. You know me. You've not only, if you don't know me, you research me, you listen, you understand, you don't have a script that you stick to. If I say something, you talk about that particular topic. You're knowledgeable in all areas, and if you're not, you ask questions to try and understand, and then you try and debate, or you healthily debate what that person has said to try and you seek to understand. And a lot of people don't seek to understand. They're just listening, and they don't really retain it. They just have to because they're doing a podcast. But you are like, okay, I'm seeking to understand. That's the difference between you and a lot of other people.
No, I appreciate that. So if nothing else, has this podcast, us podcasting today, has this helped you overcome some things in your life that you perhaps didn't realize?
Yeah, every single time. So my brain is one of those brains that once I'm having a conversation with you, I'm also having another conversation on the side. And the conversation that I keep having on the side is a reoccurring conversation that I had with my friend. And she said to me, the reason that happened to you is because you're so masculine and because you're so powerful. And I realized that that's just her opinion, and that's not the reason that happened to me. So you've helped me understand that that's now a trigger that I don't need to have just from speaking to you today. And that conversation, once this podcast is over, will be gone, and I don't have to think about it again. So that's
yeah, cool. I love that. I love that. And that, and we'll just leave it there, because I'm just glad, if nothing else, and I'm not going to show the full conversation because it doesn't need to be showed, but just hearing you say that has made my day. That's it. So, because I often, when I start these podcasts, I start in mind is like, how can we help one person move forward today? And for the one person we help to be you, rather than the audience. I mean, I think you'll help the audience as well when we put this out, but that's mad. That's mad.
That's mad.
That's mad.
That's mad.
But guys, do me a solid favor, yeah? Subscribe to this on every platform you're listening to, and share it with everyone that you know as well, because it really does help more than you know. So I appreciate you on every level. And as always, I know you hate me saying this, Kayla, but much love. If you thought that video was good, why don't you press this one here? Go on, give that a little tickle.